Hey guys, in this video I'll quickly be covering a topic that I've actually covered slightly in the previous video, but I think it needs a bit more clarification and it actually needs a separate video of its own so people can actually come back to it if they want to. So this topic is about the inspector console that exists in your Chrome. So the thing about the inspector console is it allows you to debug things. It allows you to check your CSS. It allows you to play around with CSS directly, actually seeing what's happening live, so on and so forth. So even before you begin any forward, I would say open up your browser console and let's just get into it. Well, I actually have a container created here and I'm just going to show you how to actually open the browser console. So let me just open it directly. So I'm going to expand my browser window. I'm going to press the Command Option I key, and as you can see we have the browser console open. A few things that I'd like to highlight here are we have some tabs here. So we have the Elements tab, the Console tab, the Redux, Sources, Lighthouse, Network. You won't probably have the Lighthouse tab, but maybe you do. I think probably you do. What other tabs do we have? We have the Memory tab, Application, Add Block, so on and so forth. Right now, for the purposes of this course, you only need to worry about the Elements tab, and this is basically where all your HTML is going to appear. Obviously, with that, you also have to worry about this particular tab that you see on the right, the Styles tab, the Computer tab, the Layouts, the Event Listeners. Primarily, these tabs, apart from obviously the Event Listeners, are related to CSS. So what do we see here? Well, in this end, we actually see our HTML structure. So the HTML that we've typed here, we actually see it here. Obviously, we have some other elements that we haven't included, but some of them may be coming from, let's say, extensions. So for example, I have a Grammarly extension installed. That's coming from this particular element is actually coming from that. So you don't have to worry about any of the other extra things that are coming. Basically, most of the things that you see here are going to be the HTML reflected. So as an example, if I actually change this is a container. Or if I even just go, as you can see, this is a container. It's written here. I'm going to say big container or something along those lines. If I save it, as you can see, that would be updated. Let me just close some of the things that I have open here. So my computer does not lag. So here we have the big container. And as you can see, I can hover over them. I can actually see the width. I can see the padding, so on and so forth. I can actually see, yeah, just a lot of different things. So that's one. And let me just refresh the page. So anytime you actually, let's say, click on something, for example, if I'm clicking on the body tag, on the right, you see once you click on it, you actually see some of the styles that are being applied to it. So I have a few classes applied to it, like P-20, BG-300, and it's actually telling me that these are coming from the Tailwind CSS. I can actually click the Tailwind CSS to go there where these rules are defined. I can see some of the other rules that are defined on this particular element as well, or are being inherited by this element. So for example, this particular thing isn't necessarily defined on the body tag, but it's being inherited from the HTML tag. So that's basically a few things that you need to know about. For example, you know that you've actually applied a margin to this particular thing, but you can't really find where it is. So you can actually just go into the filter thing and you can search margin. And now you can see that, okay, your margin is actually being applied here. The margin is actually being applied here. So you can actually search for things here as well. Similarly, for example, you can go to the Computer tab and you can see the basic structure of it. I'm actually going to cover this box element in a separate video as well. But basically, you can see all of the styles that are being applied to it. The white ones are actually the ones that are applied to this particular element specifically. Some of the other ones are some of the defaults that are coming either from Tailwind or by the browser itself. So those are a few things that you need to know about this particular tab. Obviously, you need to know, for example, let me just go ahead and create a separate container as well. So now we have these two containers. And now let's say if I wanted to select one container, how do I do that? Well, I can actually go ahead and click here. But sometimes it's really hard to actually find things, especially if they're completely nested. For example, we have a button here, hey, and then imagine, let's say this particular thing was also enclosed within div, and let's just go ahead and save it. So now, as you can see, I don't actually see the button. Imagine if I actually wanted to select this hey button that exists there. I can actually press this particular button with the option, the shortcut for this is Command Shift C as it's displayed there. Obviously, it probably would be Control Shift C. but you can hover over it to see what the shortcut is. You click on it, and then you basically click on the element that you want to select. Similarly, for example, if you actually hover over it, if you have that element pressed, I'm just using my shortcut key to actually select it, you can actually see what element is it actually selecting. You can see some of the basic information in front of you as well. The element that it is, it's a div, it has a padding applied to it, it's a margin class, it has a bg minus white, a background minus white class. You can also see some of the CSS properties here as well, what the color of this element is, what the font that's being used, the background, the padding, the margin. You can also check accessibility. For example, is it actually readable? Does it pass some of the important checks for accessibility, so on and so forth. Similarly, let's say if I actually wanted to go to a button, you don't have to click on it. I'm just hovering over things. If you actually hover over an element, it says button. And as you can see, okay, I can decide, hey, yeah, that's exactly what I want to click on, and I go ahead and click on it. Similarly, a few things here, you can actually move this element to the right. You can move this element in a separate window. So for example, now it's not going to obstruct it. You can actually resize it however you want, but I would actually prefer keeping this element on the right. And we also have this particular tab right beside the selecting an element tab. And once I actually toggle it off, as you can see, I can actually resize this thing, and it's being resized, or I can actually click on it to see what the site looks like or what the page looks like on specific devices. So I've actually created some default ones of my own, as you can see above, but obviously Chrome has some built-in as well. So what it looks like on Pixel 2, what it looks like on an iPad, and it has some basic styling there as well. And you can actually edit this, and you can actually add a custom device, or you can choose the devices that appear in that list. So that's really simple. On the other end, you can actually make it responsive. And once you do that, you actually get these handles on the right, on the bottom, so on and so forth, to resize them in whatever way you want. You can also type the specific size that you want here. For example, I want 640 by 920 or something. So I can do that. I can also toggle the DPRs, but I don't want you to worry about any of those things. The most that you should worry about is, or know about, is the responsive view for now. So you can actually just resize it accordingly without necessarily messing this side to resize it. So that's pretty much it. I don't want to make this video really longer than it's necessary. It's a really simple thing, especially if you're just using the Elements tab. It's extremely powerful if once we actually shift into JavaScript or Redux or React and use that to debug some of the things that are happening in our application, but we'll cover that later. So for now, just focus on this, and yeah, let's move forward. Do subscribe, do hit the bell icon, do let me know if you need anything else. But yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.